very privileged to be closing this wonderful 2-day event. So I'm Lindsey Davies, and I'm going to be talking to you about Delegated Contract Manager, how that fits in with Blueprint 2, and how that's actually going to change our oversight and cover holder interventions going forward. Plus, we've got a little pop quiz at the end, just to make sure that you're still kept lively before Mr. Montanaro closes the whole event. So by the end of this session, you'll be able to know what Delegated Contract Manager is, how that connects to Future at Lloyd's and Blueprint 2, understand the DCOG system functionality, and how this will shape Lloyd's oversight going forward. So this is what this is all the tech delivery that we have within Future at Lloyd's. It's affectionately called our cheese wheel. So some of this stuff is live already. You know already about Delegated Audit Manager, for example, which is number 7, and that's been live for a couple of years now. So I just want to sort of set out our vision around the tech deliveries, and particularly in relation to auditors, to be honest, because otherwise I could literally be here all day talking about how this all connects. So in relation to auditors, it's very much a Delegated Oversight Manager and Contract Manager is going to give you better and quicker access to due diligence information when you actually need it, in front of that audit. It will give you the digital contract so that you can see at any point in time what that contract looked like. You'll be able to time travel through it. You will have access to the digital bordereau data in Delegated Data Manager, which is number 5 on that cheese wheel. And coming back around again to your audit. So all of that is going to be working in unison and to give everyone a better experience, but ultimately it will give you auditors a better experience as well. So I will stress that this is incremental delivery. It's not all happening next year. For example, only some of it is happening this year. So, but it is our vision for you. So I thought it was worth setting that out. So I'm going to talk about Delegated Contract Manager this is what is going live this year. So this is number 2 on that wheel. So this is our bar replacement. So those of you that don't know what that is, it's our binding authority registration system, and it's where it's mandatory for all binders to be registered with Lloyd's. So we are replacing the system, but it is also there to tackle many of the pain points. So it's getting a bit of an upgrade so that we can tackle those pain points. And most of you have read the contracts. You will have to look at them before you go into your audits. So you'll know that the quality of the contracts at the moment can be very varied. They're not particularly consistent in structure. They're very hard to read sometimes. And it's not usually easy to find the most up-to-date version either, as an auditor or even as a market participant half the time. So this system is going to have a much richer data set, and it will produce that core data record that then feeds and speeds up everything else within the ecosystem. Because it's the rekeying and inconsistency of that data that you have to put into all those different systems that creates a lot of the problems that we have at the moment within the Lloyd's market, basically. So release, how are we going to solve those problems? We've got releases that are happening this year in 2021, and then we have future releases. So the bar replacement, as I said, is mandatory, but the key feature to note is that the current system only actually has 34 fields, and it's not particularly geared towards having sections or section leads. The new system absolutely mirrors the contract, so it has around 120 fields per section to be filled in. However, before you'll kind of fall off your chair, it's about 50% of those are filled in automatically, because at its heart, it is absolutely data quality that we're going for, and it has to be the version of the truth for the binding authority contract. That will then feed Delegated Data Manager, for that core data record, so that all of the board regs attached to that. It also has a partial contract builder. Now, essentially, what that means is that if you're going to fill in all this data to do with the contract, if you don't have a contract builder as a broker or as a managing agent for that matter, you can use that data and pop it into an LMA or an MRC contract template, basically a binder template, to then create the binding authority. The only thing that really isn't filled out is section 6 and section 20, where a lot of the clauses go in and the extra sort of free type stuff. So it is quite a useful tool to be able to get that consistency within the contract. So that is within the first releases within 2021. So that will reduce some effort. There'll be some improved messaging, and the data quality will absolutely be improved. So for future releases, we are looking to enhance it even more. So we're looking to have that right first time contract. So actually having the system tell you which clauses to put in. It will do some checking, so it will make sure that it's right first time. We're looking to have full electronic placement within the system, collaboration, so that the cover holder, the broker, and the underwriters can all negotiate on the contract, collaborate with what they want changed, etc. And the cover holder can sign it off, which they've never been able to do before. They're very excited about that. And then we have this concept of what we're calling full contract builder, which is basically attaching it to our Lloyd's wordings repository to be able to actually choose the clauses and pop them into those into the contract as you're building it. So, for example, if you are producing an Australian contract, it will tell you which clauses to put in, and it will help you attach those at the same time. So, as I said, I stress again, just to manage expectations, the future releases are going to be very incremental, and what gets chosen to be delivered first will be very aligned to the value that it will give to bring to the market. So I'm not going to give you a demo of the system. It's literally on the last sprint at the moment, so it is imminently going live, and it's quite volatile, shall we say, because of that. It's just about to go into testing. But what I wanted to do is just give you an idea of what it looks like and some of the functionality that might be interesting to you as an auditor. So here we have the landing page, and this landing page kind of gives you the tasks and ongoing tasks and my teams, etc. This wouldn't really be relevant to you, so we'd have to design a whole landing page probably for auditors, which is why you guys won't have access in the first releases at the moment, but we are absolutely looking for you to have that. This is the registration page, so it kind of tells you that you can register your contract, or it will kind of guide you to use that contract builder functionality at the moment. So it's basically saying, if you want to register it, please fill it in. However, if you want to use that contractor builder functionality, then actually it's pretty much the same process. You've just got to pop it into a template at the end. So the next few pages, I'm just going to kind of show you that it mirrors the binding authority contract. So here you have, any time zones, the period to and from, that kind of stuff. Then you've got your cover holder details in the sections. You've got territorial limits, commissions, claims, complaints, capacity details, all that kind of stuff. So pretty much everything you would see in a slip. And in the individual details section, you have authorised classes of business and coverages, and that's all drop downs and pick lists. So it's basically mapping all of those to the right risk codes, etc., etc. So this page will also give you the person's operation for operation control, and as I said, any other key personnel that you would need in the binding authority, you can use to pick that. It's also got the email addresses. So if you imagine when you're kind of, when you do finally have access to this, you'll be able to assess the size of an audit pretty easily by going through these pages without even having a copy of the contract. You'll be able to kind of see how many sections, what's the leaders, and who the relevant people are at the cover holder that you would need to see. Now, this last page, I think is going to be, I suppose, the most interesting to you, as in, this is where you would generate the document if you were producing the document, if you were creating the contract as a starter for 10 here. But it's also where at the top you upload contract documentation. Now, the biggest change for the market in this release is the fact, because the system will be utilising the data and sending it through to other systems, particularly Delegated Data Manager, it has to be checked thoroughly before it goes into that API, before it's allowed to go into that API. And that data feed, sorry, for those that don't know what an API is. So the managing agent has a checkpoint within the system. So the broker will register the contract. It will then press submit, supposing he's passed all the validations. Then it goes to the managing agent and they have to check the data that's been entered into the system against the actual uploaded final signed contract. So the broker has to upload a final signed contract to the system. So we will have a fully signed contract uploaded into the system for you guys to access once we finally give you access. So it's quite exciting. You'll be able to see pretty much the whole record within the system, but also you'll have a copy of the fully signed contract within the system if they choose to share it with you, which again, this is all the sort of access controls we need to build going forward. So that's really where it kind of fits into Blueprint 2. And those of you that have seen Blueprint 2, it's quite, it's a relatively large document. There is a really nice interactive section within Blueprint 2 that you may or may not have seen. So when we share the slides with you, I'll give you the link to that. But this is what it looks like. It's very summarised. It's quite nice to read. And the facility placement part of Delegated Authority contracts, it talks about right first time on this particular page. This is Delegated Contract Manager and how that is going to be able to do that. So everything I've just gone through essentially, and that you'll be able to have access to. I think we do talk about auditors on there, and continuous contracts is the other thing that we reference in there. So I suppose it's just to sort of highlight the fact that we've never allowed continuous contracts, and we know our competitors do. And as we get more comfortable as Lloyds that risks are managed through technology and that people have access to the right data at the right time and they've got the controls around that data, then we can look to allowing things like evergreen binders. Because if you think you've got a digital contract and then you've got access to all that data within the Delegated Data Manager, and all of that is being monitored on an almost daily basis, then we can look at, as I said, relaxing our rules slightly to allow such things as continuous contracts. But again, this is incremental change we're talking about here. So Blueprint 2 is a promise of technology, but that is really to enable our vision. We want to be, as the sort of regulatory department of Lloyds, we want to be more risk-based in our oversight, and we want to make sure that we keep regulatory confidence. Obviously, we need to always keep that high bar that we have as Lloyds. But we want oversight to be proportionate and less intrusive. So remote audits, for example, are a great start to that where appropriate. So the richer data we have, the less we have to keep asking for the same data from all our stakeholders, the less that you have to keep asking for it as well. Because I know that that's been a bugbear in the past by some cover holders. And we can all concentrate on what we do best. And that we ensure that if our customers want to grow, then we can grow with them, because all of our sort of frameworks around controls are scalable as well. So that's my segue into our oversight regime. So I know most of you know this, but for really new auditors in the audience, ongoing monitoring are an essential part of oversight of cover holders. It's not just audit, obviously, and we impose within our rules an ongoing duty of the market, of the managing agents, and we ask that the managing agents tell us when things go wrong. And obviously, audit is sometimes an indicator that something has gone wrong. Also, have they closed their audit reports on time? That could be an early indicator. And if they do spot something, then 9 times out of 10, sending an auditor in is one of those best ways of verifying if there is a problem. So we can also intervene and ask those managing agents to actually conduct an audit. So some of you may or may not know, but through our intermediaries bylaw, we do have the powers to intervene directly with the cover holders, and that's mainly down to the fact that we have our cover holder undertaking. So that gives us a direct contractual link with the cover holders ourselves, which imposes the cover holder undertaking also it imposes duties directly on the cover holder to conduct their business with due care and skill. But it also gives us interventional powers, and we can commission an audit ourselves if we wish to, for example. And as a last resort, we can revoke their approval if something's seriously wrong. But that is very much a last resort. So often, if there is an issue found, it's the local Lloyd's offices actually that will actually spot that first, or the local regulator might have given them a tip off. So audits then form an extremely important part of our investigation. So we either can commission audit reports, or we will be going through all of the previous audit reports to see if anyone ever found the issue before, because that gives us an excellent picture of how of investigating what's gone wrong. So we're coming to our pop quiz. I hope you're all still awake. So over the last 2 years, these are updated figures. Over the last 2 years, we've had over 100 cases reported to Lloyd where there's been material issues. 31 were serious. 6 resulted in actual deregistration. So it's not bad, 6 in 100 actually over 2 years. But I would like to ask you a question now. Sam, can I hand over to you to ask my poll question, please?
Of course, yeah. So just you can access this on the right-hand side of the screen, or if you prefer, you can go to slido.com and enter the reference number C179. So we'll just get people onto the question, and then we will send it out and see what results come in. We'll give it a few seconds for the numbers to build up. Okay, so everyone, you have some seconds to answer the question in front of you. So just submit that and send it in, and then we'll see which ones have got it right. So 30 seconds left just to answer this question, please.
I want to have the countdown music on.
Yes.
It's very quiet. I hope everyone's still awake.
It's the suspense. No, there's a lot of people there answering, so that's good.
Good.
Okay, so it's looking like 58% of the audience have gone with the answer of over half of them.
Yeah, that's what I thought you'd say. It's actually, have we finished everyone's answered, yeah?
Yes, yeah, that is everyone's answers in, yep.
Yeah, it's actually really much lower than that. It's actually only 6 that were first discovered during an audit out of the whole 100. So I know it is shocking. I was quite shocked at that, actually. I think a lot of that is, if I go back to my previous slide about monitoring, a lot of these things are indicated through monitoring, but you bet your bottom dollar the first thing they do is commission an audit to verify what the problem is. So I guarantee you that nearly all of these have had an audit on them as an issue, but they're not always found during audit. So it's something to ponder. It's quite an interesting stat, I think, that is worth highlighting. So I think we've got my next pop quiz. Here you go. So analysis of the material issues. Yeah, Sam, if I can ask you, so which cover holder domicile is experienced the most material issues out of all of these?
Great, thanks, Lindsay. I think you might need to click again, then we might be able to see the.
You're right, sorry.
That's all right. So which cover holder domicile experienced the most material issues? So we're looking for the one that's 38% on that graph there. So you can pop your answers in. You've got 25 seconds left. Great, we've got some coming in. Ten seconds left to get those answers in. Okay. Very close between the EU and the USA. So 37% said it was the USA and 34% have said it's the EU.
Brilliant, thank you. It's very interesting, actually. It's the answer is the EU. So the EU is the 38%. The 17% is actually the UK. So between the EU and the UK, that makes up a whopping 55% of the problems. Actually, if you look at US and Canada combined, they only make up, they're the 11 and 8%, they only make up the 9%, and Australia is the 12%. So again, quite interesting when you start looking at that, because obviously the main premium income comes from the US. So yeah, that is a very interesting stat when you look at it all combined together with how much business we get through those areas. Good. Well, I'm glad you're all still awake. That's made me happy. This is another bit of analysis, but no pop quiz this time. This is, material breach. The major material breach of contract is the sort of 33% here, operating outside of authority, which doesn't always end up being serious. It can be a case of the managing agent says, well, we spotted this, but they're sorry and it wasn't an issue, or it's been picked up through an audit and it actually it wasn't a systemic issue, it was just a one-off, etc. So I think that's quite a comforting. I'm quite glad that's the largest part anyway. And the actual fraud criminal offence is still relatively chunky. It's 12%, but it's still it is kind of lower down than that. I suppose the bit that we worry about the most is that damage to Lloyd's brand, reputation, and licenses. That 20% there, that is a of significant importance to us as Lloyd, because obviously we do not want to be losing our licenses, because that will hurt us all. So moving on. So just going back before I finish to my cheers wheel again. So it's just that lasting thought of, once this is all joined up, so going, hopefully you understood that the replacement of Atlas and VAR on the first one too will be of significant importance to you as an auditor, because we will have consistent, verified, transparent data accessible to all the right stakeholders at the right time for when you need it. So particularly when the whole vision is that when you're able to be allocated to an audit, you'll be able to see the relevant details. And we have a way of doing that now, but it can be quite clunky. And then that is all linked up within the ecosystem, and you'll be able to get that data through Delegated Data Manager also in the right place and time. But also the way that the market conducts its due diligence will change, because they'll have access to all this data as well. So the way that we do everything going forward, the way that we conduct audits, the way that we do oversight will change in the future, hopefully a lot more efficient and effective for everyone. So I will end on that with just recapping that we identified the specifics of Delegated Contract Manager and Oversight Manager. So that was the Atlas side, and how it connects to the future at Lloyd's Blueprint 2, and to you, understand that Delegated Contract and Oversight Manager functionality, and how this will shape Lloyd's oversight going forward. So that's it from me. We were going to go to questions, Q&A, weren't we?
Yeah, perfect.
Everyone?
So you can ask your questions just on the right-hand side of the presentation screen there in the Slido box, or by going to slido.com and entering C179 as the reference number. We've got a few come in already, so we'll start with the most popular question in the list. Will there be a direct link between DAM and DCM, so appointed auditors automatically have access to the contracts and UMR identified for audit?
That is the plan. Whether that is achieved through connectivity between those two systems or not, that is yet to be decided. But absolutely, we can utilise the appointment within that system to then trigger access controls within another. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a complicated integration. It could just be a trigger through an API. But yeah, it will happen.
Great, thanks, Lindsey. Are you able to provide any examples of alleged fraud that were investigated?
Not off the top of my head, no. I've got a massive spreadsheet with all of this stuff on. So contact me outside and I will gladly recant some horror stories. I mean, I can remember one, I suppose. That was where a cover holder in the US was doing the one for you, one for me. I think they were issuing one policy document and then issuing another policy document with spurious underwriters with Lloyd's or something like that on it, so that when the claims started rolling in, those policies didn't have a home. And then when those claims started rolling in, obviously, we had some complaints with people waving pieces of paper that had Lloyd's written on it, but actually weren't issued correct, with any binding authority. So that is one that I can remember off the top of my head. And needless to say, that cover holder was deregistered.
Interesting, thank you. So I think this is referring back to one of the questions that we asked to the audience. Which was the most troublesome EU country?
Interesting. I think that's a difficult one to answer. We definitely have the most binding authorities in Italy. So whether you would, that's just a sort of probability thing, isn't it? Is if we've got the most binders there, then we're probably going to have the most issues there. But it's not to say that I would have to measure quantity with the severity to get the answer to that, because there could be only one thing that happened in France, for example, but that thing nearly jeopardised our licence. So that would far outweigh a few five things we had in Italy, for example. So the answer to that question would need to be analysed properly to be able to answer that properly. But as I said, usually in a probability scale, we have over 100 binders in Italy. So 100 cover holders, sorry, not 100 binders, we've got way more than that. We've got over 100 cover holders in Italy, so it's likely that they would probably have the most problems.
Thanks, Lindsey. Will it be possible for audit firms to download a summary of the binder from DCM?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that you will have, and thank you for that question, because that's one of the things you will have almost as soon as it goes live, the ability to print registration will be there. So actually the print registration functionality, you'll be able to have that straight away. You don't need access to the system for that. And that will give you a lot more data than you currently get on a bar printout. So that is something automatically you will get as an auditor. You just got to ask for it, but hopefully the managing agent will be able to do that for you whenever you need it.
Thank you. Would you provide a system demo or training for auditors?
Absolutely. We are fully when we do onboard auditors, because we're not even onboarding cover holders at this stage. It's purely the managing agents and the brokers. When we do onboard you, there will be a proper onboarding cycle. There'll be training. There'll be license agreements to sign, all that kind of stuff. It's free, so you don't need to worry about that. For auditors, you won't have to pay for it or anything. But yeah, there will be a full onboarding program and training program for you to use it. Yeah.
Great. Do you have an estimated go live date for release 1?
Yep, it's end of June, beginning of July is currently planned. So providing, this is an agile project, first one I've ever worked on, and yeah, it's hard going. We're in the last sprint, so we're nearly there. But as I've learned the hard way, things can always go wrong. We never know what can come out of the woodwork, particularly in testing. If something comes out of market acceptance testing that we need to fix, then it could edge out slightly, but it's absolutely planned for the end of June currently.
Thank you. Does Lloyd's intend to require managing agents to increase the frequency and scope of the audits of their cover holders?
Not the frequency, because we work really hard to make sure that we coordinate. So definitely not the frequency. To my mind, it should be a combination of, this is a desktop auditing, you've got access to all this data remotely now. So you should be able to monitor, given that's where a lot of the issues you find are actually found anyway. The monitoring is key, and the auditing should be at the correct level for the correct risk. So if it's a large cover holder, it should have a sort of rolling plan. There should be a lot more intelligent application of how audits are commissioned going forward. And I think that will change as this technology gets rolled out.
Thank you. Is there potential for these market systems to link directly with other systems, for example, MGA internal systems?
Well, if we're talking about premium claims and risk data, absolutely. The whole vision behind Delegated Data Manager is that cover holders could API or feed directly into that system their data, so that we could do away with bordereau. That was always the kind of vision for that system is the data flowing directly between the two parties. That is some way away, I think, because to get that API working, we've got to make sure that the data standards are standardized, and there's a bit of work to do still, particularly on the risk side, to make sure that we standardize that data so that we can get those things flowing. So there is some work going on within Future at Lloyd's to look at that, and we are looking at some early adopters that might want to pilot that direct connectivity, and we know that there's some cover holders out there that are willing to do that with us. So watch this space. There is a lot. There's a bit of work to do, but there is absolutely the intention to connect those things together, should the parties want to.
Thank you, Lindsey. Will auditors be able to allocate access to a cover holder record to an individual auditor's Lloyd's login?
So you will have access as an auditor. You'll be given access as an auditor with a login for the relevant systems. I believe DCOM, which is the Delegated Contract Manager and Oversight Manager, that will have all one access, I believe, because it's all one system. And I think they are looking at doing a sort of single sign-on type arrangement for when it's all live, because what you don't want is everyone kind of having to log into like 5 or 6 different systems. So that is being looked at, but until all these things go live, that is going to be hard to visualize, I guess. So it's something roadmap somewhere, but it's not something I can really answer now because I don't know what that looks like.
Thank you, Lindsey. Will the contract builder be connected to the wordings repository?
Yes. So the Lloyd's wordings repository, yes, we have centrally procured that. And it is absolutely planned in the future releases to connect that in so that you can just choose the clauses you want. In fact, the system will tell you which clauses to utilise for the territories that you're producing that contract for.
Great. What were the most common binder breaches experienced with EEA cover holders?
Again, that's on a spreadsheet. Not sure I can answer that off the top of my head, but maybe with something we can be on follow-up information. Kate, if you're listening, we can maybe answer that one offline.
Yeah, absolutely. Just if you want to send that one to events@lloyds.com, then we may be able to follow up with that with more information. Thank you. As this rolls out, will it generate a scope revision and revised audit forms?
I don't think the technology that I was speaking about, Delegated Contract Manager, will affect that particularly. So that would be a Kate question, I'm imagining. I don't think what I've just spoken about will affect that stuff directly straight away. As I said, in terms of scope, it should be risk-based, and I'm pretty sure that that's what the current framework is there to enable. So I don't think so, unless anyone disagrees with me.
Okay. Are all systems being built in a multilingual fashion, so data in French, Italian, etc., can be integrated seamlessly?
I think the answer to that at the moment is no. The systems are all in English at the moment. That's not to say that they shouldn't be. They should be multilingual, but at the moment they're not.
Okay. Just looking at the most popular one. Okay, so how are BAA endorsements and master off slips tracked in DCOM? Will auditors have the most current version or the initial contract and all amendments?
Yes, so that is, part of what the vision is that we have a very digital, up-to-date contract with all the endorsements. The part of the functionality is that you can endorse the contract and you have time travel. So it's really nice. You can actually sort of move a dial and go back to sort of 2 years ago where you can see that was endorsement number 9 or whatever. And you can see exactly what that contract looked at that time. So that bit is quite new functionality, quite funky functionality that everyone quite enjoys. So that is that bit. Sorry, Sam, can you repeat the question again? Because I don't think I've answered all of it.
Yeah, let me just. So Yeah. It was how are the VA endorsements and master off slips tracked in DCOM? Will
It's
audit.
the master, it's the master off slips bit. So within Delegated Contract Manager, we have the ability to link contracts. So it absolutely deals with the fact that you can have masters and subs. And also we've kind of relaxed our rules slightly on sub-delegation. So it's kind of giving us a platform to be able to control those as well. So you can have the concept of as a master or subcontracts, or and it's binding authority contract, so it doesn't deal with any off slips in terms of declarations attaching. So it doesn't deal with the risks. This is just sub binders, master and sub binders. So it absolutely has that functionality to link them and then monitor them as a whole, and to understand the hierarchies and the relationships within those.
Great, thank you. So last few questions here. How can we better align the auditing process with annual OCO checks using these new systems to avoid duplications of efforts?
Yeah, so that's the Oversight Manager part that I kind of referenced today, but we've not even started to build that yet. So that's the number one on my cheese wheel, which is the replacement for Atlas. So that is going to upgrade what we do within OCO and approvals. So the whole due diligence checklist will be much more transparent, better formatted, etc. You will have access to those as an auditor, so that you do not duplicate when you're going into your audits. That's absolutely part of that whole vision of you having access to that data.
Great, thank you. So if the policy and claims data are held in DDM going forward, will auditors also have access to the data? Currently files are selected from Bordeaux.
Yeah, so that is the vision. That is that you be able to look at that data in the system rather than have to look through pages of Bordeaux, because obviously if we've got cover holders APIing a feed directly into that system, and that's the only way they're giving it, they're not giving Bordeaux anymore, then you have to have access to that system to be able to do your audit. So that has to happen. That is going to be complicated in terms of access. So we that's all going to work, because you kind of need it for a point in time, and then you need to remove yourself. So that's quite complicated to do, but it absolutely needs to happen. So that is the vision.
Thank you, Lindsey. Okay, we've got just one last question. So will the question set for cover holders include anything to do with receiving remote audits?
Could you repeat that question, please? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Will the question set for cover holders include anything to do with receiving remote audits?
I don't really understand that question.
Fine. The person who asked it wants to provide a little bit more information. We might be able to get you more precise.
So there's nowhere on the binding authority contract question set that talks about remote audits. So
Lindsey, I suspect that maybe this is in relation to OCO checks, if there will be anything. Obviously, we are looking into it. So there is a talk between the cover holder team and audit team to start basically looking into it. So I think that was the question. But if we can just make sure that that's what was meant, that would be great.
Yeah, because if it's the oversight stuff, then yes, absolutely.
Then, yeah. Thank you.
Audits, yeah. Okay.
Okay, great. Just give it a minute and see if any more questions come in. Okay, there we go. How far away are we from auditors having access to data via DDM?
I honestly don't know. It definitely won't be this year. It needs to be planned. DDM is already live. So the change pot for that is managed by the market and Limos. So Lloyd's don't actually run that system. So that is one where they've got to prioritise all of the changes that they want to the system to make it viable. So looking at the access controls for other third parties to that system, whilst it's extremely important, it's going up against priorities against having cover holders API into it, for example. So it's all got to be put together in a list of wants and needs, and it's got to be prioritised. So I can't, as I said, and Lloyds don't control that. So that is one for the market to, as I said, prioritise. So I doubt it definitely won't be this year, because I know that's not on the roadmap. Hopefully it will be next year, but it is going to be what adds the most value in the market. So I think it's going to be a bit of a chicken and egg. Personally, it would be that once we've got everyone using the system and then the amount of usage goes up, then it makes much more sense to make sure that the auditors have access to it. At the moment, it's probably not the most priority, because not everyone's using the system yet. So I think once that bit goes up, then the need for you to have it will go up, and that prioritisation will kind of take care of itself, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you, Lindsey. With the enhanced due diligence with the new systems and OCO checks, will there be a change in expectation on MAs regarding due diligence let me start that one again. With the enhanced due diligence with the new systems and OCO checks, will there be a change in expectation on MAs regarding due diligence they are expected to undertake?
There's always changes with due diligence, because everything evolves, right? So there's always stuff going on. So there's always an evolving practice when it comes to due diligence. But I think what we're trying to do is centralise it. So a lot of what the managing agents do is quite good. It's just that it's not consistent. So if we can make it consistent, then we only have to do it once, rather than maybe 10 different ways, but all doing roughly the same thing. They're all mitigating the same risks. So the whole point is to make sure that it's done once, centrally, consistently, but also transparently, so that the leaders can do it and the followers can rely on it. Because at the moment, followers can't rely on anything the leader does, and they have to do it themselves as well. So you've got duplication going on right around the market, and it's just really inefficient. So that the whole premise is, yes, they might have to tweak a few things, but everyone's pretty much doing the same sort of stuff. So this is just about centralising it, making it more transparent, and making it consistent.
Great, thank you, Lindsey. And just one last question. If you are holding BDX data from risk-bound, will reporting functionality be included for auditors and brokers to extract or manipulate in order to track GPI and performance? Would you like me to read that again?
Yes, please.
Yeah. If you are holding BDX data from risks-bound, will reporting functionality be included for auditors or brokers to extract, manipulate to track GPI and performance?
I doubt it. That sounds like a managing agent job, to be honest, but that is something we'll have to look at when we do auditor access, I guess. Is if there's a need for it, then maybe. But I wouldn't imagine that that would be at the top of the priority list, because that's something the managing agent should have a report on that daily. So they should be monitoring that themselves. They don't need an auditor to check that.
Great, thank you, Lindsey. If any more questions come in that we don't get around to answering, please do send them to events@lloyds.com, and we will follow up with you afterwards. Lindsey, is there anything you'd like to add to the end of the session?
Just thank you for being so interactive. I really appreciate that. I was the last one of a very full 2-day event. So thank you for all being awake and so engaged.
What do you mean last one?
Oh, yes, sorry. I forgot you.
Charming.
Thanks, Lindsey. So we'll now hand over to Peter, who will be giving the closing address for the conference. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Lindsey's afterthought. Element of jeopardy in the presentation, I'm afraid, this afternoon, because my Wi-Fi has crashed 4 times in the last 20 minutes. So I've also dialed in, and I've put my phone in another room. So if I crash, I'll run in there and start talking to you through the phone. So if I do, Lindsey can come on and tell a joke in the meantime. But so I better not waffle, I better crack on. So first of all, I must thank all the speakers for this event, and of course all of you for joining us. As Paul said in his opening address, auditors are a key part of the community, risk-based audits will remain critical to support our market and our oversight agenda. So before I reflect on the conference itself, I first wanted to say a few words about our oversight generally, and that's developing. So the remediation work that you'd have heard all about that has been necessary over the last few years to work with the market to try and improve our results has started to bear fruit. And we are seeing now improved performance. Our agenda now is to sustain a high level of performance management whilst embracing our risk-based approach of supporting our better managed syndicates through a less intrusive oversight regime, which in turn then releases time for us to work closer with those syndicates that have their own particular challenges and issues. We expect our managing agents to be active in their oversight management, and that includes the way that audits are managed. They need to be working closely with our auditor network to ensure that every audit provides the best possible results, both the syndicate and the cover holder. It's interesting listening to Lindsey's presentation, actually, because it's not all about finding problems. In fact, that's not as important as being able to confirm that people are doing well, and perhaps for auditors to give our cover holders good advice. So I wasn't too concerned about the low numbers in terms of problems. I think that's a good thing. And I don't particularly look at auditors, people that are going in there to catch people out, to find problems, but hopefully just to confirm that businesses are running well and maybe give those businesses some good advice. An audit done well is of benefit to all parties. The managing agent gets comfort that its business is being protected, and the cover holder will also receive both the comfort of knowing that its processes and procedures have been verified, but also, I hope, as I said, receive some helpful advice and insights from the auditor that will improve their businesses. I chair a committee at Lloyd's that agrees syndicates' business plans and capital each year. Given the importance of the subject matter, the whole process is audited by our internal audit team every year. And I completely welcome those audits, as we always learn something new from the experience and always pick up something that can be used to make our whole process better. And that's what a good audit should be. I always used to tell cover holders that given that audits were being paid for by the market, they should look upon the audit as a free consultancy rather than as a chore. Of course, they all used to roll their eyes and shake their heads when I said that to them. And in fact, Melissa mentioned earlier, didn't she, that one of the problems of the virtual conference is that you can't see what people are doing while you're speaking. Well, I'm quite happy with the fact that I can't see you all shaking your heads and rolling your eyes when I give my dewy-eyed view what I think an audit means. Anyway, coming back to the conference, the themes of our conference were around how to move forward post the pandemic, especially in terms of remote audits, and also to raise standards. And just reflecting briefly on the sessions we had, we heard yesterday, of course, from Zoe, who took us through the changes in claims management. And as auditors, you know of the importance of keeping pace with the risks as our approach to management and payment of claims goes through significant process change. Jenny talked about our complaints process, including changes we made as a result of the pandemic. And what we heard is that we all need to make better use of complaints information as they provide valuable
sorry, Peter's frozen. I'm sure he was going to say valuable insights.
Apologies, everyone. It seems we've lost Peter momentarily there. Hopefully he will be rejoining us very shortly.
Right, so Wi-Fi crashed. Can someone just confirm they can hear me, and then I'll carry on?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so good thing I had a plan B. So there we go. What an organised person we are. what was the last thing you heard me say? Because I'm sure you were here listening very diligently to my every word.
It was around the value of audits, I think.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, well let's pick it up from the insurance industry reputation. It's fair to say has taken something of a bashing as a result of the disputes arising from the COVID response. And one of the actions that Lloyd's has taken is to commence a project looking at product simplification, including how we can improve our wordings, hopefully to make them shorter and in plain English. Our auditors will also see examples of where our wordings or processes have unnecessarily complicated and confused. And where that's the case, please let me know if you have any suggestions at all, drawn from your experience of doing audits for us, as to where we might look to make some improvement to drive forward simplification of any of our processes. We then heard from Kate and the expert panel that's specifically looking at the lessons from remote auditing. We saw the really strong survey feedback that showed how this was embraced last year and that cover holders and DCAs welcome this. A key message we heard from the panel discussion was that COVID-19 was a turning point in the DA audits, and we're entering a new era of cost saving and more efficient independent reviews. And as such, a new rule book on remote auditing would be required. We do like a rule book at Lloyd's. Lloyd's DA audit team, along with the market and auditors, will work collectively on deployment of the best practice guidance in weeks to come. Now, I have a typically selfish interest here. One of my teams at Lloyd's is responsible for undertaking reviews of managing agents against the various standards that we hold them to. Like you, we've had to do all these reviews remotely over the last 12 months, and this has necessitated us learning new ways of working, many of which we're now not going to let go once access to our managing agents' offices is once again allowed. These desperate times have forced us to learn to work smarter, and we must not throw all this away as we step slowly out of lockdown toward whatever the new normal has in store for us. I'm keen that we understand all the lessons that you have learned through your experiences so that we can steal some of your better ideas for the way we will do our own reviews in the future. Now, moving on today, we heard from Helen, who explained how we're seeking to embrace similar levels of oversight over the claims DCAs and for cover holders. And if ever there was an example of where audits are filling a critical need, this is it. We look forward to working with you over the coming months to ensure that the information that is being developed through the DCA approval process can be made available and used to support audits. We also heard from Dean about the fast changing regulatory landscape post-COVID, and that we all need to keep on top of that. And this was also reflected in the Q&A sessions with our colleagues from our overseas offices. Sticking with the theme of raising standards, Melissa then talked about the new chartered status for cover holders. As auditors, I really think in the right circumstances, a firm's decision to embrace formal professional status, such as chartered status, can again be indicative of a firm's culture and desire to embed professional practice. And we're delighted that we're going to be working with the CII going forward to deliver more ways to support customer service in the market. We're also extremely fortunate that Melissa and the CII are working closely with us in our product simplification work. And finally, we've just heard from Lindsey about how we are raising standards for cover holders and our twin approach to both supporting cover holders through the Future at Lloyd's initiatives, but also how we're maintaining the kite mark of quality of which we are so rightly proud. And I suppose my main reflection can be summed up from the 95% of you yesterday that said we can make the 2020 pandemic a turning point in terms of the market's approach to audit. Working together, I really think we can embrace the opportunities for new ways of working. My call to you is think about how to embrace new cost-effective ways of working. Think about how were you able to audit despite lockdown. Think about the flexibility you've all shown. Think about how you can embrace using data and electronic files. And think about your offering to the market in these terms. which we really can make as a win-win, better audits with lower expenses. And that just leaves me with 3 last things to mention before I go and try and fix my Wi-Fi. First of all, to remind you that there is CPD accreditation for this event. So not only have you had 2 fun patch days, but they can also now count towards your CPD requirements. Secondly, I must thank everyone that has done such a wonderful job in putting this event together, especially Kate and her team. And thirdly, thank you all for attending our conference and for being such an invaluable resource to the Lloyd's market. To you and your teams and your families, stay safe, and I hope to see many of you in the not too distant future. Thanks and goodbye.